Hi, and welcome to a special episode of our Experiencing Consciousness podcast. We are
Roxanna Erickson,
Catherine Rossi.
And I'm Jan Lipa.
We are so happy you are here.
Hello, everyone, in another episode of our podcast. Today we are here with Dr. Catherine Rossi and Dr. Roxanna Erickson-Klein, and we're going to be talking about using hypnosis to quit smoking. Yes, that's going to be the first topic. So I will say just in the beginning that I may have a case. So would you like...
Oh, do tell us your case.
Yeah.
So we want to start with the case. Okay. So recently a client came to me and gave me a permission to actually highlight the dynamics of the problem. And it's actually smoking cessation, quitting cigarettes. So the client came to me, client that I was actually working previously with on various things, and told me if there is any way of quitting smoking. So, since we were working previously with hypnosis and number of other techniques, they were familiar. I'm gonna use they to not mention the sex or any identification parts. So they were used to using hypnosis and stuff. So was thinking that it would be that if it's going to be possible to use hypnosis and other techniques that I know to help with quitting smoking. And the idea was, the way I understand this was that the smoking, the client actually said, I think I would like to quit smoking, but then they said in a moment, they said something like, but to be honest, I'm not sure yet. So I know I need to be sure. That's one thing, but I'm somewhere there thinking that I may want to quit it. So that's one thing. And we were analyzing it. I was kind of trying to gather some information about the dynamics of the thing. And the one thing I noticed was that when a client was in a relationship, the partner in a relationship was kind of controlling them. So what happened was that they were like playing this game of hide and seek, the one was hiding with the smoking and the other was controlling them. So after they kind of depart from one another, the client actually noticed that they are smoking more. So my association, the first association that came to my mind was that that there's another meaning to the cigarettes attached, not only the chemical pleasure or pleasure itself, but also that it was, my first association was that this kind of smoking when you hide from someone is like from when you are in a period of the youth rebellion, the difficult teenage period. So the function of the smoking may have been a rebellion against oppression, and now when it's like even more of it, it's an expression of freedom. That was my first association, other than just having a purpose of kind of being more relaxed or something like that, or deal with difficult emotions. And the question came up if it's possible to do something with it, and I said that of course there are many possibilities, and that we will have to deal with it step by step with different parts of it and stuff. But that's me. And that's my case. If you have any questions about it, need some more specific information, I'll be more willing to provide it. But that's it. Generally, that's the thing.
Well, I will be very interested to hear at a later date what technique you use and how it works out. I will be very interested to hear that.
Okay, I may in the end of the podcast, I may share some of the ideas that I do have, although it was just a few days ago that I've heard about it, that they said that to me. So I didn't check any of my hypotheses yet. So I'm in a creative process of gathering information and building up structures from it, some kind of understanding.
Well, I know, Catherine, that you have a very different way of working with smokers than I do. And so I think that would be a great place to start. And then listeners can take the information that you provide and see where it fits, because it's really what you do is really more concrete than the nebulous one. So they can take that factual information and see where it fits in my style.
Okay. Well, when it comes to smoking in particular, I go the scientific route on it, which is what happens to your body. And when people start smoking, what they find out is that they can pay better attention. And that's why people smoke, and then it turns into a habit. A lot of times it's like a social thing and how people get involved in it. And but what happens when you take in nicotine, so you're smoking a cigarette or you're smoking a cigar, is that it immediately turns on the P300 wave in your brain. And the P300 wave is for attention. And so that's a scientific fact. So what I tell people is that, okay, I've helped lots of people quit smoking. And this is how I do it. Here's what I want you to do is when you pull out a cigarette, I want you to take 2 or 3 puffs, and then I want you to put it out, because that's enough to turn on the P300 wave. And then after a while, you'll see if you want to continue smoking, but knowing that you can use it for this purpose. And each and every time, I said, it's an experiment, so you see. And so they will, and they say, wow, it took an entire day to smoke one cigarette. So instead of smoking a pack of cigarettes, there was the one for the day. And so they, take the couple of puffs. I said 2 will usually do it, 3 for sure. And past that, you've already turned on the wave. So more is not better. And again, these are people that are interested in quitting smoking. And generally it's within a couple of days that they lose the, that they see that they've had a habit of smoking. And losing the habit is harder than just giving up the nicotine. And but in each and every case, it takes about less than a week. So in this case, I'm uncharacteristically concrete. And the thing is that if I don't have to say no to something, I'm less likely to be resistant. So if I tell you, you really need to stop smoking. I mean, it's bad for your lungs, it's bad for your heart, you really need to do it, you have children, you shouldn't be, all the no, 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 no. Well, I don't like to tell people no. And so it's a way of being able to say yes, and also to recognize that people smoke for a reason. They don't smoke to get addicted. And yet what happens is, after a very short period of time, it's like, I just don't need this thing. So there's zero negatives in how this works. And then if a person, I haven't had anybody that decided to pick up smoking again after this, but if you do, then well, I smoked the whole darn thing, and superfluous to requirements, and so they could just repeat the process. So in my way, there is no hypnosis. It's just giving the scientific facts, and then do what you do, and enjoy taking those puffs. Like, you're only going to have 2 or 3 of them, so you can enjoy doing what you're doing, and then it becomes a choice.
Okay, so you say no hypnosis, just scientific facts. So actually education.
Yeah, well, I mean, that most people don't think about the brain waves that are going on in their head. And I mean, we think of in general terms, alpha, beta, theta, this sort of thing. But the scientific thing is the P300 wave. And where I learned this from is I was in research at the Veterans Administration and UCLA. And my lab partner was an avid smoker. I mean, it was constant. And then one day, one of his lungs collapsed. He was in the hospital, very, very painful. Gets out of the hospital. The next week, the other lung collapsed. And it's like he decided that he better get serious about, why is he smoking? And he really enjoyed smoking. And so we researched it, and that's when we found the P300 wave. And I mean, who doesn't want to pay better attention? And so in this case, that once he understood about the P300 wave, then he did what he needed to do to turn on the P300 wave, and then that was enough.
That was enough for him and for many other people. So my question is, did you ever had a client where this didn't work, or you needed to do something else, or a client where you actually used hypnosis to work with on that subject, just out of personal
The
curiosity?
answer to the question is no. I mean, that I don't know if it's my personality, or that sort of thing, of the freedom to do what you want to do. And so I don't get that many people coming to me for this kind of problem, that living in the state of California as I do, and right here in the area that I live, we're the first ones that said, we've got to ban smoking in restaurants. And then that traveled the world, but it all started right here. So there's not so many people that smoke here. It's just really rare.
Well,
so the answer is, nope.
maybe there's gonna be more cases when we're gonna be doing a podcast about smoking pot, since California was the first state to legalize.
Yeah, well, a lot of people do that. That's a different,
exactly.
a different story. But
more case studies.
Well, and I mean, that's a whole other, social issue, and the zoning out issue and things like that. But I do know that Roxy's been really successful working with people with smoking in a very different way.
Right. And using hypnosis.
Yes.
My favorite tool, or procedure, or state, or everything in between.
Well, so I live in a different part of the country where there is still a lot of cigarette smokers. And even, I'm very grateful that it's banned from the restaurants and all, but there are still people that, right outside the door. So smoking is more prevalent here. And thankfully, over time, people have come to understand that it's not so good for their health. And so there is more of a group of people who really does want to quit. And so I have had an interest in using hypnosis for stopping. And over the years, I've developed, I must say, uncharacteristically, a very rigid strategy because that is not like me at all. But I have found a technique that works, and it hasn't disappointed me. So as I said, usually I'm always wanting to try something different, explore different directions, but with this particular topic, I've narrowed down and become more committed to the technique that I use. So what I am doing is I call my technique "Stop Smoking Now." Okay, that's what it's called. And I have a whole bundle of little handouts, psychoeducational in nature. And one of the handouts, it talks about the paradox of smoking, because when you smoke, it relaxes you. But over time, it makes you more tense. It's a bronchodilator, but over time it stiffens the lungs. So all of those things that it gives you in the beginning, over time, it kind of shifts gears, and what feels like a benefit at the start, later on, doesn't feel like. And even, as you had commented, Jan, people frequently start smoking as a way of showing their independence, maybe rebelling against authority, or just, I have a right to choose. But paradoxically, over time, they lose their freedom because it is an addictive substance. And so over time, they lost their freedom, or they, forfeited it. So the way I work, when somebody expresses an interest in giving up cigarettes, I tell them, well, I have a way that I do it, and that I have a flat fee. So even if you come in for the first appointment, it's a 3-appointment series. And if you come in for the first and don't come to the second or third, you still paid, because it's a flat fee paid up front. That's one of the things. Part of the reason why I do that is because it's a way of showing commitment. So I'm trying to stimulate a commitment and investment on their part that, yes, this is something they want to do. So as I said, it's 3 appointments. In the first appointment, I tell them this on the phone before they ever show up, because I don't want them to be disappointed with the sequence. So the first appointment, no hypnosis. I'm gathering information. I want to know all what they get out of it, what they like about it, what their motivation for quitting is, what their favorite part, what their least favorite part, how much they smoke, at what age they started, where they keep their extras, how many packs do you have on hand, stuffed away in the bottom drawer and in the glove box and in the kitchen, and then, so I'm asking all these questions about the habit. But part of what I'm doing is I'm raising their awareness of all these elements, because it is a combination of an addiction and a habit. And as Catherine says, the habit is in many ways even more difficult to break than the addiction. So I'm raising all this interest in the habit. And at what point, how many cigarettes left in the back before they rush to the store? Do they always go to the same store, or do they have a number of stores, or do they by what brand and who do they smoke with, and what's their first in the morning and what's their last at night. And, so I'm asking all this multitude of questions that, in addition to raising the habitual elements, I'm actually asking the questions in a way that is not a conversation. They're envisioning themselves going through these steps. At what moment would you panic if you discovered you didn't have hardly any cigarettes left? And where would you go? And would you consider, this and that? So I'm drawing them into the imagery of being there at the time. So we go through all those questions. Okay, and then I tell them I require several things. One is between now and appointment number 2, because appointment number 2 is the stop smoking now moment. And they are required, if they're going to work with me, they are required to dispose of all of their smoking paraphernalia, the case of the attic, or in their bottom drawer, in their glove box, all of the cigarettes, all of the ashtrays, all of the lighters. They get it out of their house, put it, because when they come out of the hypnosis session, they are a non-smoker. Okay, right now we're in the prep phase, but at the end of the hypnotic session, they have taken on a new identity as a non-smoker. So we don't want all of that stuff lying around, tempting them for them to have to deal with. So I schedule the appointments with enough time in between. They tell me how much time they want. So is it going to take you 2 weeks to, to find everything and handle it, or do you need a month, or can you do it within a couple of days? What do you need? So that decision making is entirely the subject's decision. Okay. So, but my expectation is when they come in, I want all of that stuff. I want to walk out of my office a non-smoker. Okay. Now, in addition, and whether they're going to smoke up all the cigarettes, or whether they're going to give it to their friend, or whether they're going to throw in the trash or bury in the backyard, I don't care. That's their decision. They can handle it however is going to best suit their needs. But it's going to be out of their line of sight, of their property, out of they're not going to have that material waiting for them to challenge them. But between now and the next appointment, my assumption is there's still going to be smoking, because they're not going to be a non-smoker until we have the big hypnosis section. They walk out. I want them to change it up. So if they're going to buy a pack of cigarettes, buy a different brand. If they normally smoke, right after breakfast, well, this time they're going to smoke before breakfast. And if they keep their cigarettes in their breast pocket, they're going to keep it in a different pocket. They keep it in the glove box, they're going to put it, in their purse. But I'm going to ask them to make as many changes in their habits between now and our hypnosis session. And I also, one of my handouts, I have a list of 50 things you can do, okay, to change up that act of smoking. Okay. In the discussion about this, which takes about really an hour to 90 minutes, I allowed to go over this complete history. I'm also gathering keywords. I'm gathering what they like. I'm gathering their motivation. And I'm taking all of that in as ammunition of what I'm going to use in the hypnotic session that I'll create the next time. Okay, so that's session number 1, prep. Session number 2 is our big non-smoking. This is it. We're gonna have our 60 minutes hypnotic induction, and you are going to walk out of here a non-smoker. And so then in the hypnotic session, I basically start with a relaxation and take them back to them making that initial decision when they were a kid, however young they were in their youth. They made the decision that they wanted to smoke, and they didn't know that it was going to entrap them. And as they matured and got wiser and smarter, they realized that it wasn't serving their needs in the way that they anticipated. So I'm giving them all these hypnotic suggestions of maturing in a healthy way. And I also give a lot of negative suggestions. And this is, I am not inclined to use negative suggestions in hypnosis. But I have learned that people do better if I give them negative suggestions, that when they smell cigarette smoke, someone else is smoking, that, oh, they didn't realize how disgusting it smelled. And they're, to smell the odor lingering on their clothes, to realize how unpleasant, and not to be comfortable until they can wash their clothing and cleanse that air their living quarters out. So I give, and then complemented by day an awakening of your taste buds and your ability to take a fresh, clean breath. So I'm countering these negative suggestions with the positive. Okay, and so the sensory ones is one, rich area to do that. And another one is with their motivation. And it is not uncommon, in fact, it's very, very frequent for people to say that, they get so ashamed when the kids are watching them smoke a cigarette, or that they have to step out of a business meeting and they come back in. They feel that sense of shame. And so I amplify that feeling of shame, that you're just remembering that sense of shame every time the kids, you didn't know they were home, step back into the business meeting, and now you recognize that you have that lingering scent on your garments, and that, and that shame that, for all those years of smoking is still present, but you can move forward in a positive step and show your strength at this time. So as I say, I do a lot of check and balance of the negative and the counterbalance of the positive. I do an awful lot of that. And then, I forgot it. I have one more. I'll get into that. So anyway, that's the hypnotic session. And then I declare that their cravings will diminish. And, every now and then they get a flicker of desire to a cigarette, but it'll get less and less over time. They'll totally forget it. It won't be so troublesome. They'll feel stronger and proud of their ability to just move along into a healthy tomorrow as a non-smoker. Make a really big deal about that.
You put it in a form of post hypnotic suggestions, or do you tell them that after the trance?
No, post hypnotic suggestions. And then frequently repeat my post-hypnotic suggestions in the waking state. Okay. The one part I forgot to mention is in the prep, I tell them that I have that, and this is true, 100% success for people that agree to their relapse response plan. We, in our preparatory session, we have to agree upon a relapse response plan. So they've already agreed they're getting rid of all of their paraphernalia, all their cigarettes, and if they relapse, if they decide, oh, I just can't make it, I have to have a cigarette, I'm gonna have a cigarette, they are not allowed to borrow a cigarette. They are not allowed to take a puff off of anyone else's. If they're going to relapse, they're going to do it right. I get them to commit. If they are willing to commit to this, I will give them 100% probability of total success. So, can't borrow, can't smoke anybody else's cigarette. If you're going to relapse, you have to go to a store, preferably not the store you usually go to, but some other less convenient store. Buy a pack of cigarettes, preferably a brand that you wouldn't ordinarily buy. Okay. And then you're going to have to buy a lighter and figure out an ashtray because you threw all those away too. So you buy your pack of cigarettes, you buy a new lighter, you problem solve with the ashtray, you smoke the cigarette, and then you take the rest of the pack, there are 19 cigarettes, and you crumple them up and throw them in the trash, and you say, wow, that was an expensive cigarette. Okay, so so if they're going to relapse, and that happens because smoking is an addiction. This is how I explain it. With addiction, sometimes you relapse. Okay, so if you relapse, this is how you're going to do it. I want a commitment that you're going to do that. That's Roxy's relapse response plan. Now, if they have a relapse response plan that they think would be more effective for them, I've had one or two, one of us to stand up and admit to their family, I smoked another cigarette. Okay. But most of the time, people just prefer to use my Roxy's relapse response plan. Okay. And I get them to commit to that in the first session. Okay. I have had 100% success. Now, the third session, okay, so the first session was the prep. The second session was the hypnosis. The third session is just a checkup. How are you doing? Do you want more hypnosis? Are you feeling good? Just kind of report in. Tell me what you want. And usually people come back, they just want to refresh or bolster up my spirit, and they're okay from it. So that's my 3-phase stop smoking now routine.
Fabulous.
So in the end of the second session, you actually, if I understand that correctly, you alter the ending part or the result of the pattern that leads them to smoke, because you put different consequences on it, since they need to buy everything from the beginning.
No, that agreement is made in session 1.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the agreement is made in session 1. I remind them in session 2. is we've had your hypnosis session. You are now a non-smoker. Addictions are tricky, and you may get a few cravings. If they're very difficult and you're tempted to relapse, remember we have this agreement on the relapse response plan.
Okay.
And so I'm just reminding him.
So it was actually done at the first session.
It was done in the first session. I forgot to elaborate at that time.
But even so, it actually alters the whole pattern, and actually came to my mind that it alters it in a few ways, because first of all, on the behavioral level, the result of actually smoking is different from normal. Normally they were just, taking a cigarette out of the pack and felt what they felt, and that's it. But here they have to, they smoke it, but there's a consequence. They have to throw all the others, and that becomes an ordeal or something,
Right. It turns it into an ordeal. And then they self-shame. That was an expensive cigarette.
Exactly. So that actually highlights the consequences are bigger.
Mm-hmm.
But also what came to my mind just now is that every time they actually buy a new pack of cigarettes, new lighter, and everything else, it's like as if they are beginning to smoke, which means that they are actually indirectly, they are actually enhancing the identity of a non-smoker that is just in the beginning of smoking. And
yeah, it takes them back. And when I do the hypnotic induction, I take them back to the beginning where they felt that they were independent and making a statement, and they probably didn't even like the taste of it, but they thought it made them look like a big shot. Or, so I go over that, and then I get into as they mature, they realize how childish they were at that time. So it brings them, so if they're buying a new bag of cigarettes, it's great bringing them back to the awareness that this is a childish stupidity. And I'm reckless about using words like, it was a stupid choice, You thought you were making a good choice, but you learned later that it was really kind of stupid. So I use charged words that they're not expecting to hear, and in particularly with people who have been working with me in other contexts, I tend to be positive, like Catherine. I tend to be positive and enthusiastic and upbeat and strength oriented and cheerful and stuff. So once I start shaming them, it gets their attention. It brings shock and surprise into it.
But also in the end, you're bringing them to the point where they're making the choice. Mm-hmm. I mean, all along, but so when you say things like, wow, that is a stupid, childish, thing. And especially with the relapse response, is that you're bringing them into a situation where they're making the choice. It's not a habit. Mm-hmm. It's the opposite of that, of, truly making the choice about whether they're going to smoke again. And that I think that this element of making conscious choice, this is what cures all addictions, is that when you can bring it to the realm of choice versus I don't know, I looked and there it was in my hand. I don't know how it got there. Mm-hmm. And so making the unconscious conscious.
Right. And that is, the main thing with overcoming a habit. You bring the unconscious conscious, and so you've got that awareness to work with every step of the way.
Mm-hmm. And I would imagine that this would generalize to other places in their lives, that they think that it's just, to become a non-smoker. But I think that this kind of a process would generalize into many aspects of the rest of their life. And when you say things like your tone of voice is positive, even when you're saying, shaming, it's not like the way that a person is going to shame themselves. They're going to use a different tone. Or if someone is trying to shame you out in the rest of the world, they use a different tone. And this is one of the aspects of doing therapy, and particularly doing hypnosis, is that the tone, the rate of speech, and the tonal qualities are very, very helpful to evoke change. And you can say just about anything when it's said with the right tone. So it can be biting words, it can be strong words, but in saying it with a kind of a gentleness, that it's received in an entirely different way. And I think this is part of the beauty of psychological shocks and surprises.
Yeah, plus you can also connect particular words and states with particular cadence or way of actually speaking by ways of simple conditioning. And then, while we're talking in a particular way, we are also launching with it associations and different states and things like that. I noticed that to be of particular value in trance. When I'm working with someone in a trance for particular through a period of time, and they are becoming more experienced, the only thing that can actually launch very deep trance state is anything, alteration in my voice tone or something like that, in the direction of the way I usually do while I'm working with someone in a trance. Many times when I'm working with someone in hypnosis, I look at the floor, since when you talk to the floor, the voice kind of bounces off the floor, and it's a sound engineering, and it goes around the whole space in such a way that it's more difficult to spot where it comes from, and you get this impression that it kind of surrounds you, all around, that it's all around you. So I do that many times, and then I've noticed that sometimes when I'm thinking or telling people anecdotes, I also do it, and then I put my head up, and the same people are in a trance, and I didn't do any induction, but it was so that they were used to me doing that while they were in a deep trance so much and so many times that it conditioned, and in this way, small hints, small cues are able to launch huge emotions or huge states, and that could be also useful. I mean, just a reflection.
So one of the things that I want to emphasize is that even though I do shaming and negative suggestions, I do balance it out and definitely end on a positive note, that over time, day by day, you're going to notice that you're stronger and one more successful day and feel so good about that. And
just the way that you said that, Roxy, that it feels so good. you
Mhm.
changed your rate of speech, and you
Right.
changed your tone, and that yes, it's very important, as you say, to have the balance.
Mhm.
And that, because of course not all of life is positive, so sometimes you have to go to those negative places because they're honest.
Right.
And the most important thing anybody could ever do for themselves, and I tell people, be honest with yourself, do not lie to yourself. And that you made mention of the word disgusting, and
Mhm.
that you might use that from time to time. I have a colleague who's a specialist in addictions, and what she does, and most people with other addictions, they also smoke, and she has them repeat, "I'm a smoker," in different ways. "I'm a smoker. I'm a smoker. I'm a smoker." I mean, all of these sorts of things. And what she finds after people are go through that, then they often say at the end of it, "That's disgusting." They and when she gets to the point where people themselves call it disgusting, they're ready to give it up
Mhm.
almost instantly and effortlessly. So and I want to hear, Jan, what you did, and what your thinking was. But I think that for the people that are listening, what you're getting each time is that there isn't any one answer, there isn't any one way to do these things, that you bring your best intelligence with you, and that you approach it really with like heart and soul, and do what you think is right at the time. And so all three of us are really different. So Jan, are you gonna spill the beans about what you did?
Well, I did nothing yet, but I can tell you what I'm planning to.
Okay.
I was just sitting and asking questions. So it's like I'm somewhere in the middle of the first session that Dr. Roxana mentioned. So that's so where I am now. Well, when you said about the different tones of voices, by the way, I have to do it. When you said about saying to yourself, am I a smoker? In a different tones of voices, immediately what came to my mind was they actually they I think they probably include it, or if they don't, they may. They don't even have to quote me for it. I would include Lord Vader into the play. Think about that. It's like, I am a smoker. So it's like,
Absolutely. Well, and there's nothing wrong with having fun with something.
Mhm.
That sometimes that these things, it is serious. Addiction is a really serious
yeah,
thing. And I appreciate that, but sometimes the levity of laughter that just changes the trajectory, because ultimately everybody, what they really want to do, they want to have fun. And the problem with addictions, they're not fun.
yeah.
And so I like the Darth Vader.
Yeah, yeah, I did too. And I will say that when I'm doing my inquisition in the beginning,
And yours really is an inquisition. My God, I don't know if I could ask people those questions for 90 minutes.
it's
You go, girl.
it's interesting and it's fun, and I can get them laughing. Well, do you keep your extra bag in the underwear drawer, or where do you keep it? Where somebody else can find it? Do you ever hide it in the back of the pantry? And all of these crazy answers that come out with things that I never would have thought of. Well, they've got the emergency bag up in the carton. The emergency carton is up in the attic, behind the boxes. And it's like, well, and I'm like, you're gonna have to get that one too. But we end up with laughs about as they open up and share the depths that they really recognizing the depths of preparation that they have gone to maintain the habit, in my surprise and my laughing and my smiling and joking about it. Wow, you're really serious. And what do you do when you're when you're starting to get close to well, we get people here that drive 100 miles to buy it up on the reservation where they don't have the cigarette tax. And it's like,
so it only costs you $20 to drive. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So we can laugh, but that is something that is fairly easy to be made into humor, and to start laughing with the client about it. And one of the things that you were talking about locus of voice, Jan, and one of the things that can be done very, very early in the inquisition is to start, leaning this way. Ooh, this is a really tough habit. Are you sure you're ready to overcome it? Where you're moving, your locus of voice and using that to create an association that empowers the subject. And it's subtle, but you can start it very early and then keep through all the way through the second and third sessions.
Yeah. Well, and when people smoke, they often go to the side, like, I mean, that they'll smoke like this.
Right.
So, and so I've got a new part of the relapse plan that you could add if people have a good sense of humor. They have to drive to the reservation to get the one pack of cigarettes. Right. Then they have to drive home. Anyway, that's a half day affair.
Right.
If you converted that into walking, that would be a journey of a lifetime.
Yeah, I guess you start on Thursday morning and you get home, on Sunday evening. So, well, I mean, it's been a really interesting subject, and once again, we really do go deep and try to share, like what it is that we do and actually why it is. And so this ability for the three of us independently to think these things through, and we enter the room with the most important thing, which is we enter the room with who we are. We can only be ourselves. And so within this process, and when you're looking at a client and you like them, there's an affection that you have. You like this person, you like this individual, and you want them to have a satisfying life. Yeah. And when we enter the room with someone, that is palpable. And the other one is the belief that I believe that everybody wants to live a good life. They want to live a satisfying life. They want to live a happy life, and they want to live a healthy life. And so when this is my way of saying that when somebody comes in with a problem, that's what I see. I don't see the problem. I see the person for, who they are, and that they're temporarily going through some kind of, questioning, or, some kind of trauma, or, just, this is people in general. But that when we look at them, and when we're with them and seeing them as a person, as someone who has beautiful qualities that they have forgotten, beautiful intelligence on the inside of them, but they put the blinders on. And so being able to have like the expansive view, to be able to move this way and that, and just being a whole person. And so with addictions, that really interferes with people believing in themselves, and trusting that they really do know what they want. It's a question of figuring out how to do what they want to do, because nobody wants to do unconscious acts. Nobody wants to do that. And so I like, Roxy, that particularly I the Inquisition, I'm thinking of, it's like, it's when you nail the hands, down, and, it's like, you will tell, you will confess, that in this instance of getting people to become self-aware in regards to smoking. And so I really applaud your method, that the Stop Smoking Now method. And I'm sure that I'll ask you, what's your success rate?
Well, as I said, if they commit to the relapse response plan, it happens in 100% without fail. And I won't work with them unless after the first session, they don't agree to a relapse. If they can't come up with either mine or their own, I just tell them, why bother? Why bother? We can go through the steps that there is. If you're serious about giving up smoking, you're going to have to give this some deep thought. So it's interesting. I went through a interval of learning different methods to stop smoking, and I had approximately 100 women who were in an addiction center. They were there for drug addiction or alcoholism. They weren't there for smoking. And in fact, it wasn't even advised that they stop smoking. But I offered Stop Smoking Now single sessions with them. So we didn't go through all the preparation, it was just a group. And then I did some follow-up. And for them who hadn't even committed to giving up smoking, I still got a 30%.
Wow.
That's right, which I thought it was phenomenal.
And that is phenomenal. That's way more successful than what typically happens.
Yeah, the normal treatments.
Yes, and so this relapse preparation is, having the plan and the preparation that I see that as the probably the most vital of all the steps.
Yes, it is. It's making the commitment, it's raising the awareness, going through all those. As I said, I'll give them a little handful of handouts to keep the information fresh, and keep them looking, self-reflecting at themselves.
Well done.
So
okay, so in the end, let me just summarize, because I didn't do anything yet, but since you asked, I'm feeling compelled to just share what I'm thinking about, just briefly, because it's just an outline of some sort. So I'm thinking about this whole smoking problem in terms of a pattern of behavior, which has a beginning, some kind of scenario, that's so to speak, and at the end. And then there's a need behind it and identity also, and those are the possible. So I'm now thinking about some strategic ways to address all these things. So we can modify, for example, the end of the sequence by attaching an ordeal, as you said, Dr. Roxanna, in your relapse prevention plan. For example, that modifies the end of the sequence. I was also thinking about modifying the sequence, modifying in some way the way people are actually smoking or doing something with the cigarette and stuff, and then modifying the beginning. What's the when do they actually start smoking? What's the point where they decide? How do they decide that that's a good moment to actually have a cigarette? And so to modify that one, to address the needs in a certain way, so the cigarette actually satisfies some needs, so we can work on alternative ways to satisfy the needs also. And then there is an identification, which you also address. You say, teaching them, or we are working on them. There's a whole process in between sessions and in the session of working with them to become non-smokers, which is an alteration of identity. And so I was thinking about all these. I have to say that your idea clarifies a lot to me, gives me some frame to work with. That's one thing. The other important aspect is the idea highlighted by Dr. Catherine Rossi, because in case of my client, I believe that I have an idea that the way of working where I just gonna say, well, you're gonna have to quit smoking from now on. I don't know if it's gonna work. And when I say I don't know, that means that I don't know, since there are some personality traits that react to that kind of, direct commands in an opposite way. So I was thinking of utilizing the P300 idea and, kind of in this way also alter the way people view that they will view the whole smoking process, and which means the underlying meaning behind it, and also alter the sequence of the pattern by that. So that's how I'm thinking I'm going to utilize some of the things that you said. And I think that's also my summary of the whole episode, where I bring all that together in my own framework of how I'm going to, utilize.
It'll be interesting to see if people want to make comments of like additions of things that they had thought of, that we're always interested in that.
Exactly. So generally, to all of you who are listening to us, if you have any questions or comments, just put them in the comment section wherever you are listening to us or watching us. If it's YouTube, just put it into the comment section on YouTube. If it's Spotify, there's certainly, I believe there are questions there that you can ask or something like that. So don't hesitate, just do it, and we're gonna answer everything, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so till next time, thank you very much.
Thank you, Jan. Thank you, Roxy.
This was another episode of our Experiencing Consciousness podcast. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Jan. You're the best. Be well, be happy, celebrate life.